Hello, ladies and gentlemen. The Bearded Bard is back for another fabulous Friday rambling. That's right, we ramble because it's Friday and because everybody needs just a little bit more help finding the best ways to entertain yourself and keep things holly jolly. Because it's that time of year. It's a holly jolly rambling. Not quite, that's another week. But we're gonna be positive, cause it's time for Actor Love. That's right, we're gonna do a quick rundown of several important movie roles, many of them iconic in their own ways, of one of my personal favorite actors, Dan Aykroyd. We all know Ray Stantz. We all know I know Ray Stantz because I've done a lot of Ghostbusters love here and there around the channel. But the biggest and most important aspect of it is he's done a lot of other stuff. We're going to gloss over Blues Brothers because, well, after Ghostbusters, that's his most iconic film. We're not going to get into a full deep dive of his career because, well, the man's done a lot. Huge. As I said, this is just going to be a quick best of. Think of it as a personal recommendation list if you want to get into some Dan Aykroyd. As such, we're going to go right into it. And remember, as I said, this is not a comprehensive list. Real quick, we're going to go ahead and throw it out. Yes, Dan Aykroyd did come to fame as one of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live when they were affectionately known as the not yet ready for prime time players. A joking reference to the late time slot that the show aired in, and that they were all, at least here in America, young, by and large, unknown entertainers. Aykroyd himself is Canadian and had done some work up in Canada before Saturday Night Live, but SNL is what really launched his career, including a lot where he met several of his favorite collaborators, such as Bill Murray and the late John Belushi. Aykroyd and Belushi would be very close to each other early in their careers, with Belushi's unfortunate and untimely death being the only reason they did not continue to work together, both in television and in film. So, as I said, let's go ahead and give you a quick rundown of what I think are Dan Aykroyd movies you should watch besides Blues Brothers and Ghostbusters. First, in 1983, we have Dr. Detroit. Besides Dan Aykroyd, it also stars Howard Hessman, Lynn Whitfield, Fran Drescher, and Donna Dixon, with a special cameo appearance by James Brown. This movie has some wonderful behind-the-scenes trivia notes, as Aykroyd and his co-star Donna Dixon married soon after the film's release, and they stay happily married to this day, I do believe. Excuse me, I'm just going to go ahead and make sure I am quoting things right. Doop-a-doop-a-doo, Yep, they are still married and have 3 daughters, Danielle, Stella, and Belle. So, all congratulations to Dan and Donna for their long and happy marriage. The basic plot of Dr. Detroit is that the introverted comparative literature professor Clifford Skridlow finds himself being manipulated by a pimp named Smooth Walker, who owes money to a Chicago mob boss. In order to get the mob boss off his back, Smooth Walker invents a fictional rival who is responsible for cutting into Smooth's business, and thus Smooth not having the money he owes to the mob boss mom. But as the lie continues to grow, Smooth finds he needs a physical stand-in for his rival, Dr. Detroit, and gets Clifford to portray it. Shenanigans ensue, romance is found, and when it's all said and done, the introvert Clifford proves that, well, Dan Aykroyd's best characters are usually ones that are socially awkward in a lovable way. In fact, pretty much everything we're going to mention on this list, with the exception of one, and I will definitely note that, seems to be characters that are a little bit socially awkward, but good-hearted. Well, maybe that's why I like Dan so much, because, hey, that's what I've been accused of being sometimes. I mean, come on. I'm hiding behind the internet to talk to all of you. If that ain't socially awkward, I don't know what is. Well, it was never one of Dan's greatest roles as far as financial success for the film. The interesting cast, including several other people that would go on to greater fame, such as Fran Drescher, who of course had her own TV show in The Nanny that had a one-episode guest cameo by Dan Aykroyd, along with other at that time established players such as Howard Hessman and the aforementioned cameo by James Brown, gave the film a unique place in the not A-list super successful, but still has the ability to have some good laughs films of the 80s. It grossed approximately $10.8 million on a budget of $8 million, and does have a cult following. In that same year, though, Dan Aykroyd would bounce back by teaming with director John Landis and Eddie Murphy, Ralph Bellamy, Don Amici, along with everyone's favorite scream queen, Jamie Lee Curtis, for Trading Places. Now, Trading Places is a very well-known, infamous movie, mostly for the deep social commentary throughout the film. And the basic plot of it is that super rich brothers Randolph and Mortimer Duke, who own a commodities brokerage firm in Philadelphia, happen to get into an argument on the issue of nature versus nurture, deciding to settle it by conducting a social experiment, switching the lives of two people on opposite sides of the social hierarchy and observing the results. Dan Aykroyd plays the well-mannered and educated Louis Winthrop III, who is engaged to Duke grandniece Penelope, and Eddie Murphy plays the poor black street hustler Billy Ray Valentine. Dukes decide to use these two men for their Trading Places experiment, hence the title. Now this is again one of those films that, like a lot of what John Landis does, such as the also highly well-known Eddie Murphy film Coming to America, involves a lot of humor based on culture and social commentary, and as such, for the younger audience that doesn't really remember the 80s and the way, broad social stereotypes about rich white people and the lifestyle they must live go, not all the jokes are really going to hit. But for the older crowd like myself, who does, remember things like lifestyles of the rich and famous, which was kind of your precursor to MTV's Cribs in a lot of ways. The film hits a lot of good beats. Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd play their roles excellently, and minor plot spoilers when it's all said and done, they flip the script on the Duke brothers, getting their revenge for being used as pawns in a game that was ultimately designed to make two super rich old white guys even more rich and arrogant. Hey, if there's anything any decade likes to see, it's super rich, arrogant, old white people taken down a notch. Wow. Like, you can't even talk about that film without making, awkward social comments. But let's be honest. You go on social media, find it all over the place. Oh, the rich shouldn't be rich. Rich are inherently bad. I'm not weighing in on that opinion one way or the other. We like to keep things chill. So, if you do want to see your social commentary and your class system in America in action, check out Trading Places. Jump forward 2 more years to Spies Like Us, once again directed by John Landis, and this time starring Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Steve Forrest, and, Dan's wife, Donna Dixon. Film presents the comic adventures of 2 novice intelligence agents sent to the Soviet Union, and Chevy Chase's role was initially meant for John Belushi before he died, with the film being a bit of an homage to the famous Road to film series starring Bob Hope and Bing Crosby. Hey, we were just talking about that in another rambling. See, if you watch every week, you'll catch the running references. The significance of iconic films and how they inspire everything that follows. It's wonderful. It's what makes movies so fascinating to talk about. You can't get away from the icons. Now, being a bit of a movie involving spies, there is just a little bit of comedic action to it. And it is Chevy Chase and Dan Aykroyd at their finest. This was the mid-'80s when Chevy Chase was still kind of pushing the limits of what his particular comedy skills was. I'm sorry, Chevy, I love you, but your work in the 90s got kind of lazy and redundant. Thankfully, you were still at your peak here. It's awesome. Dan Aykroyd does an incredible job. The film has also itself been homaged in an episode of Family Guy. So for you modern entertainment folks, I bet you've seen that episode of Family Guy. If you have, I highly recommend watching the film that inspired that episode. If you haven't, but you've seen this film, go watch that episode of Family Guy. If you haven't watched any of it, watch it all. Because it is actually one of the more interesting and amusing episodes of Family Guy. That's one of those shows that honestly feel like it's at its best when the writers just go all in on homage and just celebrate the stuff that inspired them to get into the TV and film writing business. In fact, Family Guy itself also did multiple episodes referencing and homaging the Road to Film series. God, I really got into an episode just about those. I keep running into it. They're so famous. We can't escape the road to cities. Save us, Dan. Drag us elsewhere. But yes, also check out roles from Frank Oz, Terry Gilliam, Ray Harryhausen, Vanessa Angel, Sam Raimi, B.B. King, and many others. Oh, also, if you totally want your Fame trivia notes, fine. The title song, Spies Like Us, was written and performed by Paul McCartney and peaked at number 7 on the singles charts in the United States. So, there you go. For reference, the film was box office success and grossed $8 million on the U.S. opening weekend, totaling a gross of $60,088,980 versus a budget of $22 million. That means it almost tripled its budget. Good job. Next up, we have kind of an oddity. This is not an homage. It's a very early example of a remake. Specifically the, hey, we're going to make a theatrical film that's a remake / pseudo-sequel of an old TV show. Now, that seems to be happening all over the place now, but it did start in the 80s with a little something. Well, it didn't start, but it was around in the 80s, specifically 1987, with Dragnet, starring Dan Aykroyd and the excellent Tom Hanks. Oh, Tom Hanks and your 80s comedies. Bill in the line. Whew, gotta make sure my beard's not in the way. The lumberjack beard is getting you. It's coming for you. But yes, we'll definitely have to have a talk someday about Tom Hanks's run in the 80s as a comedic actor. I love his drama work. He's very good at everything he does, acting-wise, but yeah, when he was a young comic, he'd made some films that just really, were pushing what he could and couldn't do as an actor. It really helped him find his vibe as far as what kind of characters he could portray to an audience. Woohoo! Now, of course, being based off the classic TV show Dragnet, this makes it a buddy cop style comedy film starring the nephew of the original Sergeant Friday, also Sergeant Friday, who has some old-fashioned views inspired by his role model uncle, and is handed a cocky, streetwise new partner, Strebeck, played by Tom Hanks. The two end up clashing against a cult forming out in LA and bumble their way through this case while finding romance, not with each other, but finding out that, as we've discussed before in previous ramblings, when it comes to being buddies, opposites often do attract and make the best partnerships. If you're a fan of the original Dragnet series, see the movie. It's a nice, as I said, remake pseudo-sequel. If you're not familiar with anything Dragnet, but you like your Tom Hanks and your Dan Aykroyd, hey, see this movie. If you haven't seen anything Dragnet and have no idea what Dragnet is, probably start with the TV show, then do this movie. Just saying, if you want to fully appreciate all things Dragnet, you gotta start with the TV show. At least a couple episodes. I'm not telling you to binge the whole thing, but about maybe, 4 episodes just to get a basic feel for it. We also have Christopher Plummer, Harry Morgan, Alexandra Paul, and Jack O'Halloran, along with a few others, starring in this wonderful movie. Now we get to the fun part. Now it's that character that I promised you did not quite fit those previous kind of socially awkward and maybe a little bit dorky characters Dan plays so well. This time Dan flipped the script, played a brash, arrogant man who got to, in his own little way, steal the show. But who did he steal it from? Why, our buddy John Candy. And look, it was written and produced by John Hughes, who we just discussed about. It's like you make a good movie with somebody and you keep working with them. Who'da thunk? But yes, we are talking about The Great Outdoors, one of my top 10 80s comedies. The Great Outdoors also stars Stephanie Faraci and Annette Bening in her film debut, following two families spending time on vacation in Wisconsin. Now, it's two households, but they are actually related to each other through marriages, which is why they're spending time together. Basic plot is that John Candy's character of Chet Ripley, along with his wife Connie and their two sons, Buck and Ben, decided to go vacationing at a lake resort that Chet and his own father often vacationed at in Chet's youth. But soon Connie's sister Kate, along with her investment broker husband Roman Craig, played by Dan Aykroyd, and their twin daughters Mara and Cara show up unexpectedly, turning it into a two-family vacation in one big mega cat-sized log cabin. Hijinks ensue as Chet and Roman constantly clash due to their differing values. Chet being more of a family-oriented man who makes enough money to support his family but isn't obsessed with it, and Roman, who is all about the bigger, better dollar and throwing his money around to impress people, whereas Chet would just prefer to honestly make friends with them. One of the great sequences of this movie is John Candy's skiing fun, as Roman drags him around the lake due to a little bit of miscommunication about who was going to go skiing and if they were in fact ready to be dragged behind the speedboat. It is John Candy at his physical comedy best, with Dan Aykroyd bouncing off him as the guy who just wants to entertain everybody by making the biggest spectacle possible. Still, when it's all said and done, after some fights, arguments, and a revelation that I'm totally not going to spoil for you about what partly inspired Roman's family to self-invite themselves onto this vacation, the two fathers find common ground and unite to save the day when Mara and Cara disappear during a massive thunderstorm. It's all said and done, everybody understands each other a little more, loves each other a little more, and there have been multiple shenanigans with multiple bears throughout the film. Trust me, the bears is a running joke in the film. Because, hey, if you're going to have fun out in the woods, who better than bears? Oh, I know. How about raccoons? How about a running joke with a family full of raccoons who refuse to not eat the garbage? Best part is the raccoons get subtitles. That's all I'm going to tell you. Cannot recommend this film enough. As I said, top 10 80s comedies. Let me get all the fingers in there. Woo. Look at that. Look at that. Top 10. All those fingers. So many fingers. One of the true highlights of the movie that I would tell you to go ahead and look on YouTube is the ending credits, during which the cast does a dance party to the 80s iconic song Land of a Thousand Dances in one of the bars that part of the film was filmed at. It's a wonderful improv expression of entertainers and artists letting off some steam and having a good time after a long day of filming. One of the all-time great end credit scenarios. We get a little bit more serious and a supporting role in 1991 as Dan Aykroyd reunites with Jamie Lee Curtis and teams up for the first time with Macaulay Culkin and Anna Chlumsky for My Girl. Well, Dan is a supporting character as it is a coming-of-age film for his girl, aka his daughter, the widower funeral director, mortician. I'm not 100% sure what the proper real-world technical title is, but the man who makes sure your loved ones have a proper send-off, does his best to raise his daughter in a small town as she finds out that life is not exactly what she thinks it is. And when you grow up surrounded by death, you may have a couple oddball views of things. Jamie Lee Curtis shows up as a new girl in town who ends up romantically involved with Dan Aykroyd, giving the character of Veda something else to deal with besides her own growing confusion as she reaches the cusp of adolescence, when, seeing how much her father favors this new lady in town, she also has to contend with her own feelings about her father finally moving on after the long ago death of Veda's mother. It is a wonderful film that perfectly touches the heartstrings, allows Dan to play a great character who's just trying to do his best as the lovable, somewhat dorky guy that we love Dan for, without having to shoulder the burden of delivering a lot of punchlines. Thus, besides just being an excellent film and great starring roles for Anna and best buddy Macaulay Culkin there, Dan's own little personal story within the film, as I said, it basically shows a more real-world oriented, slightly less funny version of the characters he classically portrays. Yes, there was a sequel to it in which Dan did return as the father character. However, he plays a much more minor role in the film. Still, if you enjoy My Girl, doesn't hurt to see the sequel. 1992 saw Sneakers, the infamous crime comedy film, which besides Dan Aykroyd also starred Robert Redford, Ben Kingsley, Mary McDonnell, River Phoenix, Sidney Poitier, and David Stratham. You got computer hackers, you got classic breaking and entering, you got a bunch of funny folks. Dan Aykroyd himself plays Darren Roscoe. Who is a conspiracy theorist and electronics technician. It's not necessarily Dan's best starring work, but as an ensemble cast film, it is excellent. As, well, since Dan's not really being relied on to carry the whole movie as the top starring actor, he can kind of lean back and chill a bit, letting everybody get their own great lines in. Him just focusing on being a wonderful character in a cast full of them. This is probably the only movie on the list that, as I said, being more of an ensemble movie with a whole bevy of big actors, I would recommend even if you don't care about Dan Aykroyd. There's so many great actors in this film, and it's a strong script. Sneakers is just an excellent film in general. So definitely see Sneakers. 1993, we have Coneheads, one of the handful of films based off Saturday Night Live characters. The film, of course, follows the alien Coneheads, with Dan Aykroyd playing father and husband Beldar, classic SNL character actress Jane Curtin as wife Premont, aka Mary, in her birth name. Young Michelle Burke as daughter Connie. Michael McKean as an INS agent tracking down Beldar as an illegal alien. Haha, play on words. David Spade as Michael McKean's assistant. Chris Farley as Ronnie, the blue-collar bad boy trying to woo daughter Connie. Supporting roles by Sinbad, Michael Richards, Eddie Griffin, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, Jason Alexander, Dave Thomas, Lorraine Newman, Garrett Morris, Drew Carey, Kevin Nealon, Jan Hooks, Parker Posey, Joey Lauren Adams, Julia Sweeney, Ellen DeGeneres, Tim Meadows, John Lovitz, and Tom Arnold. Simply put, if you know anything about Saturday Night Live up through the early 90s, you're going to recognize a lot of characters on this. And really, if you were following comedy movies throughout the 90s, you're going to see some names that kept popping up too on this list. This is one of, probably after the Wayne's World movies, this is my favorite SNL-inspired movie. And Dan brings his character of Beldar to life perfectly. His social awkward style humor is excellently portrayed, as the idea of an alien forced to live on Earth until a rescue ship can be sent for him many years later gives him the ultimate in culture clash humor and a little bit of physical comedy. We come from France. If you're a fan of SNL and SNL style humor, check out Coneheads. Our last three are going to be some supporting roles, but they are excellently funny movies, and Dan Aykroyd steals the scenes every time he pops up. First, we have the 1995 buddy adventure comedy film designed to continue to launch more SNL comedians into Movieville, as Chris Farley and David Spade lead the crowd with Tommy Boy. Now, we've already discussed Tommy Boy in an old rambling. I'm throwing it on here specifically to highlight Dan Aykroyd's supporting character of Zelensky. I think first name, Ray Zelensky. The pseudo-supporting antagonist of the film. He is the big business super chain owner of Zelensky Auto Parts and Stores, who wants to buy the company owned by Tommy Boy and his family. Dan gets to stretch his stuff as the absolute self-centered jerkball, channeling a little bit of Roman Craig from The Great Outdoors, but with a bit of update for the times. His work bouncing off Chris Farley and David Spade is excellent and some of the highlights of the movie. Feel free to go back and watch my reviews of Tommy Boy after this video if you want to know more about this particular film. Next up, we have in 1996 My Fellow Americans, that stars Jack Lemmon and James Garner as feuding ex-presidents with Dan Aykroyd, Lauren Bacall, John Hurd, William Brimley, Bradley Whitford, and Jeff Yeager in supporting roles. Dan Aykroyd specifically plays the current standing president, who is a bit of a buffoon, and as such serves as a great satire of a lot of the modern politicians and our pop culture perception of them as being not necessarily as intelligent and well-meaning as our glorious leaders of yester generation. And what can I say? It was the mid-90s. We were dealing with Bill Clinton. Somebody had to have a laugh. Don't get me wrong. I love Bill Clinton. As far as like a guy to listen to speak publicly, you know, I'm in no way completely crapping on Bill Clinton's presidency. I'm kind of pro-con on it. I'm really not a fanboy of any presidents, at least for my lifetime, but yeah, Dan Aykroyd's character of Bill Headley definitely shows some inspiration from President Bill Clinton. Just saying. But as I said, the film primarily does star Jack Lemmon and James Garner, and is another excellent film. Dan Aykroyd's appearances are few and far in between, but he steals the show every time. Finally, we're going to cap this off with another movie based off an old TV show, Sergeant Bilco. This time, Dan Aykroyd gets to play with the great Steve Martin. Steve Martin is the star and is the self-named Sergeant Bilco, the perpetual con artist serving on a small military base. Dan Aykroyd portrays Colonel Hall, the head of the base, who deep down inside knows Bilco isn't always up to good, but is a bit of a goof and maybe not the brightest bulb in the drawer to begin with himself, and ultimately knows that while Sergeant Bilco may make off with some of the soldiers' money in less than honest pursuits, he will do anything and everything to keep the base open, and it is ultimately harmless fun in the bigger picture. Bilco, after all, does have a heart of gold, which is why he's a great protagonist. You also have roles from Phil Hartman, Austin Pendleton, Chris Rock, Kathy Silvers, Richard Hurd, among many others. This is a good fun film if you are a fan of Steve Martin, or just plain that kind of classic comedy based around outsmarting people but with no real malevolence behind it. Except for maybe Phil Hartman's character, because he's the antagonist. Still, Dan and Steve play off each other brilliantly and provide the film with that reassurance that, yeah, the reason Bilco gets away with everything he does on the base is because Colonel Hall knows that, well, he's a bit of a necessary evil. And at the end of the day, he can rely on Sergeant Bilco to do what's best for the Army as a whole. So with that, you got a whole slew of movies to watch this holiday season, or even to start off your new year if you want to wait a few more weeks. After all, we got some holiday movies to talk about in the next couple of weeks. That's right, I've put it off, I've stalled. I didn't devote the whole month to Christmas in and of itself, but we are going to give you 2 ramblings discussing holiday Christmas-themed movies. Yep. And they are greats of the relatively modern age. No, it's not Die Hard. I'm sorry. I'm not going to dispute whether Die Hard is a Christmas film, but frankly, if you include Die Hard as a Christmas film, I can justify Gremlins as a Christmas film, and Gremlins is a better movie than Die Hard, especially as a Christmas movie. So, take that, internet memes. But we're not discussing either one of these films. We have some other ideas in mind for you. Join us. But even when that's all done, that's right, there's 5 Fridays in December, so there'll be one more movie dropping that last Friday in December, which is also, coincidentally, New Year's Eve. We'll have to do something crazy for New Year's Eve. It's the last rambling of the year, on the last day of the year, on a day that's all about tossing out the old. So what are we going to do? You're going to have to watch and find out. If you don't want to miss any of those upcoming videos, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you can be well aware of every time one of my videos drops. Because I'll be here every Friday. It's going to be a fun time. We're going to focus on the positive. Because nobody needs to have a Debbie Downer in December. Alliteration. December. Debbie Downer. Debbie Downer December. But we don't have that. Because we're being a positive Paul. Still, nothing's more positive than you watching. Especially if you've gotten this far through all these shameless plugs and awkward wrap-ups. So join us. I appreciate you.